Hi cuties! Yes, I know it's been a while. My schedule for uploads has kind of gone out the window with all the things that have been happening in my life. A lot of different stressors, but some good, some not great, but whatever. We are here to talk about the books that I read in July, and it wasn't as great a reading month for me because I did set the bar a little high. We just got done with whatever-a-thon, which I had done really good at, and then we move into July, which was my birthday month, and I wanted to read the entirety of Anne of Green Gables along with the other 8 books on the TBR. So I may have stretched myself a little thin, especially with a vacation in there and also losing my job, which did not help the mental health or any motivation to read. So a lot of things happened and are still happening. And also running the Kickstarter was crazy, but the Kickstarter was funded. For those of you who don't know, we succeeded, yay! Which means officially there will be the 4th book of the Ashboard Archives coming out soon. I am still working on a few things with it. We are waiting on a cover. We have been doing progressive cover design stuff, and we will be having a live stream for it soon. We need to organize it with my sister because she's the one who does the cover art, but we will be doing one. A lot of the pre-stuff for the cover is finished, and once the funding starts coming in, I'll be able to start ordering all the goodies and sending out surveys and all that jazz. So in case you were wondering about Kickstarter stuff, that's coming. There also will be some behind the scenes vlogging of it going on at some point. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Why? That's such a weird phrase, eyes peeled, like that. But anyway, we're gonna talk about the books that I read in July. I did read 10, which I know I'm saying, oh, I had a really bad reading month and I read 10 books, and it's like 10 books is a lot. For me, who usually reads, you know, at least like 15, 16 books a month, it's a little bit of a slump for me. I did have to push myself through a lot and dedicate some time. I did have one audiobook that was a very long one that wasn't on the TBR that dropped, and I had to listen to it. I had to. You'll understand why. Anyway, the stats that we are talking about is, so yes, I read 10 books. 4 of those were contemporary, 2 of those were fantasy, 1 historical fiction, 1 sci-fi, 1 horror. Sorry if the camera keeps going in and out. I don't have the best lighting today. And 1 nonfiction. So crazy, a nonfiction. I read 3,820 pages total, which was 86.5 hours listened on audiobook. So that's kind of the stats that I did. What did I rate them all as? Actually, I didn't check on that. Like, what were my average? I think it was decent.
A 3-star, 4.5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3.5, 4, 4, 2.5.
Decent, pretty an average of the 3-ish, high threes. High threes, I would say, was the average. I'll calculate the average rating right here for the books. Anyway, the very first book that I read was a physical read, and that was The Invention of Sophie Carter by Samantha Hastings. And this was a historical fiction. It was very cute. I will give it that. I did see like rave reviews for it, and while I don't think I can give it a rave review, it was still a fun, romantic historical fiction. It deals with 2 sisters who are identical twins, and they don't have parents. They've been kind of kept in this other very nice home, but the mom in that home doesn't like them. She has her own baby and wants to get rid of them, and then they end up living kind of in squalor with this other family where they're basically slaves, and then their not long lost aunt, but their aunt, who is very rich, agrees to take Sophie to help her find a husband, even though Sophie is there because she wants to go to this really big fancy inventors thing, what is the Great Exhibition, because she wants to be an inventor. She works with clocks right now in the shop that she is living at with her sister and stuff, but she only wants to take one of the twins, and her other sister, Mariah, wants to go with her. Mariah is more keen to do the husband part of this thing, so they go with the intention of switching places. So it's a little bit Parent Trappy here with the twin switcheroo, and both girls meet different men and are playing the game with it. It's very cute in that sense with their romances, and I just felt like it was very convenient how everything always worked out very fast. it didn't feel like the stakes were all that high for these girls. So that's where I was like, okay, this is a cutesy one. It didn't really have the drama that I was expecting with this, and it's still really fun, really cute read if you want to read a nice romancy period piece. If you're, you're into, if you do like things like Pride and Prejudice and stuff, then you might enjoy it. It's just much less lower stakes than Pride and Prejudice does have, which is weird to say because Pride and Prejudice doesn't have that high of stakes, but it still does in the context. This one doesn't as much. Trial with the men in their lives. One of them is just like on board, like, yeah, sure, whatever, cool, I'm good. The other one takes a little bit longer to go along with everything, but it's still very cute. I did give it 3 stars. Don't know if I'll keep my hands on it, but it was very, very cute in case it's something more up your alley. Yeah. Next up was the book that I got to buy for myself, and I was so excited because I heard some amazing things about it, and while I understand some of the more critical reviews of it, I still loved this book, and that is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell, and it's pitched as Ancillary Justice meets Red, White, and Royal Blue, and while I have not read Ancillary Justice, it's on my shelves, I have read Red, White, and Royal Blue, and I get why they're saying that. It's just way less on the romance side of things. I do love their little romance and how they kind of come together. I wish it had a little bit more of that, but I still see it. It's okay. There is a lot of politics in this. It's heavy on the mystery aspect, which I did enjoy it, because the story is that there is a prince who has died, and he and his partner, gender also means nothing in this, which is really nice. So he and his partner were treaty holders, and so in order to hold up the treaty, he has to remarry. And so the Galactic Empire people send in one of their kind of useless princes to kind of be that placeholder, and force them into an arranged marriage. He's a kind of, not a playboy, but he was kind of the disappointment of the family, and he just kind of owns that role. He's a bit of a disaster. He is a bisexual disaster in all the sense. They're both disasters in that sense. So he just wants to, like, make him happy. He feels bad because, he's obviously in mourning and now he's thrown into this. But then you learn more about the relationship that that was of the past marriage, and a lot more comes to light about it, which bonds them, and that's the sweet part. I just wish there was a bit more of the romance, which is why I gave it 4.5 stars. I still super enjoyed it. The audiobook was really, really great, and I just wanted a teensy bit more of the romance aspect of it, but I did like the mystery around it, and maybe he didn't just die, it wasn't an accident, maybe he was murdered, and investigating that and the whole conspiracy around it, I thought was very, very interesting, and I still enjoyed that part. But it's not for everybody with that, so if you're not super into heavy kind of political themes and things like that, it may not be the best for you, but it was really, really good for me. Next up is another contemporary, the first contemporary I read of the month. That was historical fiction and sci-fi. First contemporary of the month was Fake It Till You Break It by Jen Nguyen. And I'm so sorry if I said that name incorrectly, but this is a fake dating sort of enemies to lovers. It's not really enemies to lovers, they're just fake dating. They're tired of each other because their moms have always been trying to get them to go together, so they decide to fake date, get it over with, show their moms how bad they are together, when in reality, of course, they're perfect for each other. It's cute. Again, it was an okay read. I wasn't totally sold on everything for it. It had a little bit of drama that was okay. Like, I feel like I liked, what was his face? Jake. So I think Jake's side of things made more sense to me than Mia's side of things did. Mia wants to date this other guy in theater, and she's all involved in theater, but she's not actually that good at theater, and I don't really understand her as much as I understood Jake's character developmental wise. I still really liked them. I did think that their path to suddenly really liking each other went a little bit quickly for my tastes, but it works anyway. So it's, again, a very cute read. If you like that fake dating trope, which I do enjoy the fake dating trope a lot, you'll probably like this one too, but nothing like revolutionary, I should say. But it was fun. It gives you all the good feels that you need when you're feeling down. And in July, I was feeling down quite a lot, so these kind of books helped. Then I finally got to Anne of Green Gables, the very first one, yay! And I gotta say, when I read these when I was younger, I must have read some kind of abridged version, because there's a lot I don't remember, and I actually just finished reading Anne of Avonlea in this month. This is the only one I was able to get to in the month of July, and reading Anne of Avonlea, I was like, wait, I don't remember this at all. So I don't remember which version of this book I read, but it was definitely abridged. I did love it. Everything I love about this. The audiobook that I listened to for it, because I did want to try to do audiobooks for them, the narrator really captured the Anne tone, and I was very pleased with that. So it just made me have all the good feels and made me want to rewatch the Sullivan one, which I started watching again with Fee, and then watch Anne with me, and then watch all the other versions that I know and love. And yeah, I just love Anne of Green Gables. It's my favorite classic. I relate a lot with Anne and her own insecurities, her fanciful imagination and things. That's very much me. And constantly having people tell you to calm the hell down and shh. A lot of that has gone on in my life, and that's why I relate a lot with Anne. So, and next up, I read my horror. It's classified as a horror. I don't really count it as a horror. It's more of a thriller mystery, but they label it as a horror, and that is The Shadows by Alex North. This is my first Alex North book. I do own The Whisper Band, which was like the big hit, I think. It was okay. It didn't totally engross me, but I'm not really a horror mystery person. The aspects of the paranormally side of it were okay, but they didn't quite make total sense to me. I wasn't totally invested in the characters as well. Like, I don't really like that we had a cop in it. That's the one thing about like mystery thrillers and stuff. A lot of them are like crime thriller dramas that usually have a detective in it, and I'm really tired of detective stories and things. So while the main character of the detective, there's two main characters in it. Detective Amanda Beck, while she's okay and stuff, and you do need her perspective for some of the context, I still liked reading Paul's side because he was more involved in what happened in the past and how there's now these kind of copycat murders happening. I was surprised a little bit by one of the twist endings, so that was interesting. Really kind of sad. So this is a horror that makes you sad at the end, and I didn't like that part much either, but it was okay. If you like more horror mystery thrillers with detective things, then you'll probably like it. It's just not exactly my favorite kind of read. So next up is the book that kind of ruined everything because it took me so long to get through, but that's because it is a 24-hour audiobook. It dropped. I'd had it on hold for weeks, but that is the conclusion to The Poppy War, The Burning God by R.F. Kuang, which I don't know if you can see well because it is a white cover. Burning God. Look at it. Focus. There we go. The Burning God. Hey, there it goes. This is the finale, and I can't really tell you anything because so much happens in this. I don't want to spoil for you. You have to read The Poppy War, guys. You've just got to pick up this trilogy. They're chonkers, but they're worth it. They're so realistic, even though it's like a historical fantasy world of China. It's based on the Opium Wars and stuff, but it deals with these characters who have connection to these gods, and she's with the Phoenix, and there's a bunch of other ones as well, and training to be a shaman. There is kind of a love story. It's more in the second one. There's more of the love story. This is kind of like love doesn't always conquer all, but friendship does, you know. I love the relationship with Rin and Kitai. Kitai is my boy, he's my fave, and even though the ending is such a tragic ending, and it does it all right. It does everything correctly in how this would likely go down. And the play on some of the prophecies that are for other characters you don't realize are really for certain characters in this. You know who they're supposed to be and who they were told to, but history repeats itself kind of thing. And it's just kind of a glorious trilogy that is so well developed and amazing. And I can't I can't really express how much I love this trilogy. It's definitely hard to read though, emotionally. Trigger warnings abound. Like in every book, there's some graphic things that happen in these books. There are some very harsh things that happen to all of our characters. If something is a horrible thing in the world, it happens. From torture, suicide, rape, murder, castration, cannibalism, all of it happens. Everything you could possibly think of happens. And it's amazing to watch these characters live through that and deal with that trauma and go through everything. And it's just like, it's very, very heavy, but it's a very important story. I feel like it's super, super important, and everybody should be reading these if you're able to. It's not going to be for everybody, and I normally am not one who loves all of the down and hurt and stuff. I like my lighter reads usually, but this is just so good and important and gives you so many different perspectives on the parallels between how it is history and fantasy. It's very important to read. From a completely different note, we go back to a contemporary romance, and that is When Dimple Met Rishi, which is a arranged marriage, enemies to lovers kind of thing. Not really enemies to lovers. I would not say that entirely. I would say Dimple thinks of this as enemies to lovers, where Rishi does not. And they form more of a friendship before anything further. So their parents have arranged for them to meet because Dimple's mom really wants her to find a husband soon, even though she's only 18, and she's really into IT and tech. And so she asks her parents to go to this tech camp thing. It's a summer program for IT and tech where they do like app development and stuff. And I feel like Sanjay Menon, who wrote the book, doesn't know much about app development and stuff, because I wanted a little bit more drama in their app development rather than just their personal romance life, which was fine because this is definitely more focused on their romance and on their relationship with everybody. I just felt it lacked a little bit on that side and a little bit with the people around them. One of the kind of plot twists that happened with Rishi's younger brother I thought was a little convenient, but it's okay. It's not one I cared about. I didn't think it was totally necessary for what they were doing, but that's just me. But I did really enjoy it. I thought it was fun. Check it out. I do want to continue reading the rest because there's something about Sweetie, which is technically the sequel, but there's also another book called From Twinkle with Love, which is not part of the series, although it's marketed. It has a very similar cover design and everything. So there you go. This was quite the surprise. So I have owned this next book for years, several years, and I never got to. It is a translated book. I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's by Mechtild Glacier, I think, which is The Forgotten Book. Now I own one more by her, which is the book Jumper, which came out before this one, but this is the one I drove. And I have had this on my shelves for so long, I have no idea why I had it, except other than pretty cover. Lo and behold, this is a slight Pride and Prejudice retelling with a lot of magic in it. So this involves Emma, who goes to this very prestigious boarding school. She's there on like scholarship, of course, and she finds a book where when you write in it certain things, things start to come true. Not necessarily in the way that you write them, so it can't be like, I found $1 million. It doesn't quite work that way. It works like a journal and works off of your thoughts and feelings to make certain things happen. And then, of course, there are these two other boys, one who was named Darcy, who owns the house that the school is, basically, and his sister, Gina, is missing and has been missing for years, and he's there under the pretense that he's just on a holiday, but it is because he wants to figure out what happened to his sister. And it all gets tied again, and I really, really liked how that worked. It wasn't a direct Pride and Prejudice retelling. You got just the little hints of it while working through this big mystery and this fantasy aspect with the book and this fawn creature thing, and it was really, really intriguing because it felt a little bit Frankenstein, a little bit Pride and Prejudice, and a little bit Never-Ending Story, I guess you could say. Not necessarily Never-Ending Story. I think that's just the book aspect of it I'm thinking of for that. But it was very magical, and it was not what I expected it to be, so I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. I still think some of it could have been a little bit more developed in it, but I did really, really enjoy this. So this is one I think I will hang on to. I mean, it's gorgeous anyway, and I'm very excited to go check out the Book Jumper, because I don't remember anything about Book Jumper, except I think it's about a girl who goes into books. That's all I think I know about it, so we'll see what that one turns out to be, but I did not expect the Pride and Prejudice aspect of this book. So, there you go. Here we go with the honkin' book that I read. It took me 19 days to read this book. And that's because it's like reading a textbook. And again, I've owned this, I think, since like 2016. So I've owned this book for a long, long time. But that is Rejected Princesses by Jason Porth. I don't know if that's how you say his last name. But this is Tales of History's Boldest Harrians, Hellions, and Heroines. So this is a nonfiction book featuring beautiful illustrations and kind of not full stories, but a little bit more insight to some ladies you may know in history and some you don't. And it paints a very interesting picture with how history has portrayed them. I highly recommend, especially reading the entry on Elizabeth Bathory, if you know who she is, the one who was said to bathe in virgin blood, and a little bit more insight into her story and how she became this equivalent of evil. It's very, very interesting reading. Even reading Joan of Arc's, you don't realize some other factors in play with Joan of Arc's story. There's a lot more in here. There's so many interesting women from all around the world that you would never have heard of, and it was very eye-opening, and I'm like, gosh, I really want all of these women to have movies and have more detail brought into life about them, because most of the time it's the men in their lives that have ruined their image and have prevented their voices from being heard. So I really liked it. I do think it has this rating system when you go in it. It shows you this like maturity level 1 through 5, and it kind of goes through the book, like the book starts in 1s and moves all the way to 5s. I don't really understand what that means. There's no real rubric for that. You don't actually understand what the difference is between like maturity 4 and 5. So I don't think that was totally necessary, but it does give good content warnings. So there's one for violence, abuse, sex, rape, and self-harm. So those are all like when you get to a story. Let's see, well, that has one. So this one. So Mary Bowser, the spy who set fire to the Confederate White House. It's a maturity 2, violence and abuse content warnings. This is a full textbook size book, so it did take me a while to get through it, but I definitely enjoyed reading it through the month. The last book I read was kind of a disappointment, and it was going okay until we got to certain parts of it, but that is The Happy Camper by Melody Carlson. And I related a lot to this book in the beginning because it does feature a woman who's about to turn 34. I just turned 34. Loses her job. I just lost my job. Also breaks up with her boyfriend. Not while reading this book did I break up. Well, not really break up with somebody, but had to end a communication with someone. It was not going well. So I was relating pretty hard to this book. Actually, no, it did happen while I was reading this. Also, it was originally set in Colorado Springs. but then she moves to Oregon to go with her grandpa, but Colorado. Hey, goes to live with her grandfather and take care of him because her grandmother has passed away, and so he's not doing so well in that sense, and also finds that her mother has moved back, and she and her mother have a weird relationship. Her mother is kind of a free living woman that she doesn't even call her mom, she calls her Margot, and her mom just ends a 7-year relationship with a man who, and Margot doesn't like the idea of marriage, but her daughter does. Dylan, that's what I call her, Dylan. I hated that they kept calling her Dilly Dilly, like Margot goes, oh, Dilly Dilly all the time. That drove me absolutely up the wall. She ends up having to help out her grandfather, and then her mother has this crazy idea to start a lavender field when she does nothing, and her mom is kind of one of those starts projects and doesn't finish them and has her pick up the slack. Because Dylan was more raised by her grandparents than her mom. And she also meets the local hardware store owner, and starts thinking maybe there could be something with him. They don't go on any dates or anything, but they definitely have some kind of connection. But then her fiance, or her ex-boyfriend shows up wanting to make her a fiance and kind of ruins a lot of things, doesn't listen to her because she's like, I am done with you. And because he never showed up to anything and he's trying to prove it wrong, but he's basically the same guy who does not know her and does not understand her. And her mom's trying to push her to get out because they both just clash a lot. The thing about it, because I like that she then is renovating this camper. That's why it's called the Happy Camper. Because her grandfather gives her this camper for her to live in because her mom took over her room. Sorry, long-winded way to explain the plot. So she's renovating this camper and is getting ready to show it off at this little fun thingamajig, but it's mostly just for a house for her to live in that she's really, really proud of and thinks is really cute. But in this story, one of the things that super bothered me, because it came way out of left field, was the sudden religiousness of our main character. Like a good 60% of this book, there's zero talk of God. And then all of a sudden, she is all about it. And is like trying to convince her mom that she needs to find God to solve her problems. And I'm like I am not a religious person, so I don't like books that are focused on that. But I can understand characters who like that. Like I've read several books that have religious characters. It just was so out of nowhere. And then it never left. And it just didn't sit well with me, because it didn't feel like that was the character at all. So that was the part that really took a nosedive to this. And then the final conclusion, because most of the problem with her and the relationship with the main guy that she's ending up with is miscommunication and not talking, and I hate that trope until the last moment. And then when they finally confess their feelings, it's an immediate I love you. And that was so fast. Like they'd never even actually been on a date or anything. They just spent time together revamping campers. So it was a little so much rushed at the ending for me. So that's why I kind of went with it. But other people may enjoy this one a lot. It disappointed me. I liked the first half of it, and then it kind of went downhill with everything. And her mom frustrated the hell out of me. And I really wish there had been more. I always wish when parents and kids have like bad relationships, if they're going to, mend that at all, I always feel like in stories there needs to be a blow up, and especially for like the child to really yell at the parent and make them understand how bad their parenting has traumatized and affected them. I just always crave that. And a lot of books don't do that because they try to make the main character a bigger person, but I'm like, you can still have the blow up and still have them be a mature adult, okay? Sometimes you gotta do that, especially with an adult like Margot was. I couldn't stand. So, there you go. Alright, so those are the books that I read in July. I am doing a little bit better in August. I'm already 2 books down on the TBR. I'm still going to continue reading Anne of Green Gables, the entire series. Maybe it's more of my project for the rest of the year to finish the series. We'll see. But yeah, what books did you guys read in July? Put them down in the comments below. Do you have any interest in these books? Let me know. I don't know when the next video is going to come out. I'm still working on the one from my vacation in Toledo. But it's a lot of footage that I'm trying to go through with that. And I'm renovating a house for my parents. So things are busy. Busy despite being unemployed. Also, finding a new job has taken up a lot of time. So, anyway, yeah, cool. More updates coming soon about the Kickstarter and all that jazz, so make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell and all that stuff to get updates for it. If you're not already following me on social media, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, all that jazz, check out my Ko-fi page if you want to still get your hands on some of the books. There will be a pre-order up for the 4th book on the Ko-fi page soon. It's not quite up yet, but it will be. So if you missed out on the Kickstarter and you want to get the 4th book, it will be there. So I will see you next time, cuties. Bye. Book. So it took me a while to get through it. Focus camera. Focus camera. Focus, 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 okay. Whew. Focus, focus, there we go. All right. No, focus again. Focus. Stop it. It's not focusing.